there's an awakening and a knowing within the silence of this room, within the silence within my soul, that there is only one God, one love, one Father, one Mother, one all-inspiring, ever-present love. And I know that that dwells within each and every one of us at the deepest level. Always there, always available, always ready to be awakened and expressed in its full and beautiful style, full and beautiful manifestation. And so I know for myself and for everyone here today that I claim that opening and that expression of the one. And as I claim that, I allow it to go deep within me and really settle in and know what it really means. And with that comes an excitement, a joy, and a peace that is so beautiful, it's so wonderful, that it drives my day, it drives my life. It allows me to move forward into this world knowing that all is well and all is good, and that love is always there. So in this service this morning, in honor of the Father in all of us, we open to the divine message of Reverend David, knowing that the words are inspired and brought forth in his own beautiful way. So we allow the words to penetrate and to sink in. We listen with an open mind. We allow it to manifest, whether today or tomorrow. We allow it to stir within us and just unfold. So we give great thanks for this opportunity, for this service, for the time together to recognize the beauty of this place and the fact that this is our home and we are one and all is good and all is well. So I release these words into law, knowing absolutely it's so right here, right now, together we say, and so it is.
Good morning. Today's reading is from a series of poems from David White. The title of the book is River Flow. This one's titled Brendan. Jupiter in the western sky, and my son walking with the whole arc of the sea behind him. Above his head, the fishing pole, bent as if to catch the daylit star, hovering on the broad horizon. The mere shape of him in silhouette I love so much. The whip of his wrist and the rascal slant of his cap, like some hieroglyph of love I deciphered long ago and read to myself again and again. When I first heard him in the fluid darkness before his birth, calling to his mother and I from the yet unknown and unseen world to which he belonged. I could not know that particular slant of his face or hand. I could not know how he would speak to me. Our love was then for an unknown promise. But just as strong as if the promise was known, may all our promises from now be just as strong as they are hidden. For no imagining could have shaped you, my boy, as I shape you now, with the eyes of a fatherly love that must be shaped itself by your growing. If I was asked what my gift had been, I should turn to look at you, you in your beloved fishing pole, casting for a star.
Wait while Damien sprints back to turn me. Turn me on. There we go. I'm on. Good morning. Happy Father's Day. How many of you are fathers? Would you stand if you're a father? Thank you. Will you stay standing for a moment? I owe you an apology. For Mother's Day, I bought the women chocolate. And I forgot to do it for you guys today. I was in a hurry. I came back from Santa Rosa very late last night. Next Sunday, check in. There will be a chocolate square for you, I promise. Now, if you'll stay standing, would everybody who had a father please stand? Come on. If you had a father, and I know you all did, would you please honor your father? Thank you. Have a seat. Before we get into the talk, I wanted to do two more quick announcements that were not in your bulletin and that I forgot to tell Charlie to say. Number one, tomorrow we're going to be doing a visioning for the center itself. If you would like to join in catching the spiritual vision for the center, the board is going to be here, but everybody is welcome to come and do that at 5:30. We'll be in the meditation pavilion over across the way. And visioning is a powerful way to listen to Spirit and what it wants to engage with us and what the vision is that it wants to come through. So if you want to join us in knowing what is the ongoing and developing vision of this center, because this center is an ongoing active place, right? It's like, I love that poem that we read. It's like the Father's love shapes the Son and the Son's love shapes the Father. Our love for our parents shaped our parents as much as their love for us shaped us. And so the love that we have for this community and the love that Spirit has through us for this community continues to shape the vision. So we're going to capture and listen to, and pick up the phone and say, what is the vision that we want to have coming through? So that's at 5:30 tomorrow in the Meditation Pavilion if you want to join us. And then secondly, if you're still interested in the Prosperity Plus class and you go, God, I missed it, this Tuesday is the last day to sign up for that class, and you can still catch on. After that, the train has left the station and we're going without you. But how many people have already been in Prosperity Plus 1? Or 2, I mean, 2. How many people have already taken the first class? Great. And so, have you had good results? I'm sorry, what? Yes. Thank you. Are you already wrestling with some stuff? I'm sorry? Are you already wrestling with some stuff? Yeah, I have a check for you. Good. For the church, you mean, not for me, for the church. Yeah, and so this is a great class to wrestle with some stuff around expanding your prosperity, which is expanding your being in the world. So that's Tuesday. Sign up today outside in the fellowship hall in our new place to sign up for. Thank you, Charlie. And I also wanted to thank Charlie and Diana and all the volunteers who did all the rearranging yesterday. I really appreciate that. It was wonderful to have this vision and to have support for it and to have it kind of come through. And so hopefully we've created a space that works better for all of us together. So thank you. So Father's Day. Great memories, right? We've all had wonderful dads. Remember I did Mother's Day, we had the good, the bad, and the ugly? Yeah, that was one of the talks that we did. So we've all had fathers who were sort of like that also, the good, the bad, or the ugly. And so they were who they were. My father was, I didn't have as bad a relationship with my father as I did with my mother. I just had kind of a non-relationship with my father because he was pretty emotionally absent, passed away when I was 16 years old. And my mother kind of always painted him in the picture of being a really bad man, a really awful man. That was kind of the message that I got. Your father is a terrible man for all the time that I was growing up. By the time I was about 40 years old, I'd been through enough group therapy and stuff like that I'd listened to some people talking about their fathers that I knew what really bad fathers were, and mine wasn't. He didn't drink, he didn't beat anybody, he didn't carouse, he didn't, had a good, solid, steady job that provided a great income for us. He was just emotionally absent or kind of laying low because my mother was a rageaholic basically, and he just ducked. And so that was kind of him. So when I was about 40 years old, I decided to have a closer bonding experience with my father. And so I went to visit his gravesite down in Portland, Oregon. I was living up in Seattle at the time. And I took my older daughter, who some of you have met when she was here for my candidating talk. And she was about 7 at the time. And my dad, prior to my birth, had been a fisherman. That was one of his loves. And for some reason, when I was born, he stopped fishing. But that was part of his kind of withdrawing from life. And so we went down and to found the gravesite. I hadn't been there since the day he was put into it when I was 16 years old. And so it was a close bonding experience. I'm sitting there trying to have this bonding experience. And Eileen, darn kid, she's running around having fun in this beautiful, wide open green area. She's running around and playing with stuff. And I'm like, and I don't want to get in her face too much, but I'm trying to have an experience with my father. Yeah. I'm trying to have an emotional, deep experience with my father, and she's running around having a good time. And so I'm trying to shut her out and ignore her and having this bonding experience with the grave of my father and all that. And finally I looked up and I noticed, and it rained the day before. It was right after Thanksgiving. It rained the day before. And there was a couple grave sites over, there was this grave marker that had a big urn on it. It was filled with water from the rain. And she was sitting there with a little stick, flicking it in and out, and in and out. Oh, I'm going to cry, damn it. In and out of this urn. And I looked at her and I said, "What are you doing?" And she goes, "I'm fishing." And I thought my father would be so touched to know that his granddaughter was fishing beside his grave. And it was like, that was the experience. It's like, this is a box of bones. That's the experience. And so that's the, when we get past all this stuff about our fathers, it's who did they want to be? Who were they in essence? And can we move past? Because all the fathers have failed. How many fathers in the room have failed at some point in time to be great fathers? My hand's up, by the way. Yeah. Okay? We've all had moments where we haven't done it well. Some of us have had lots of moments. I've got a younger daughter who's got a whole different story because I really wasn't there for her because she was born after my first wife and I separated. And so we have all this experience. And yet we still have to find a way to love the Father, because guess where the Father lives? Lives within us. And if we are still at war with our fathers or our mothers in any way, shape, or form, we're at war with ourselves. If we have unforgiveness, if we have unloving towards our fathers or our mothers anywhere within us, we have unforgiveness and unloving towards ourselves. Take a breath. So I'm going to invite you, no matter how good or bad your father was, good, bad, or ugly, to just simply move to the place where you can hold that person in love. Doesn't condone the behavior, doesn't even mean you have to like the guy. Doesn't mean you have to go out and have lunch with him ever again, even if you can. But to move into a place where you accept the love of the Father. One of the things that helped me, and I talked about this on Mother's Day, was to realize that my real father and my real mother were God. That these human representatives came and represented that love, that fatherly love, that motherly love. They did the best that they could with the circumstances they had, and it wasn't always great. But just like when we see a beautiful sunset and we try and take a picture of it, the picture is never as good as the sunset that we are seeing, right? And so we as human beings are never as good as the love that we experience. We don't capture it as well, and yet we want the photograph to be able to remember it, to be able to see it, to be able to share it with other people, and that's who we are. We're embodiments of the love of God. As beautiful and as flawed as we are still embodiments of the love of God, and that's who our parents were. And so when we come to the love that we all wanted to embody, because trust me, your father and your mother both wanted to love you, whether they knew how or not, whether they were totally blocked up or not. They wanted to communicate love to you, because that's who we are. Each of us wants to love and be loved. That's the core of who we are, right? So I invite you to open up to that love of the Father today. And if you've closed it off, see if you can open up to it a little bit more and take a breath and let that in. We're going to talk, I'm going to switch gears a little bit, and we're going to talk about the divine masculine. Just like last week or last month we talked about the divine feminine. The divine masculine complements the feminine, ideally. And a lot of us don't, in our culture, we've really been taught to put down both the divine feminine and the sacred masculine. Yes? A lot of everything we see in the media and all that around us tells us to put both of those down, to not empower them, to not hold them as sacred. And so part of the dance that we have to do is we have to find that within ourselves. We have to find the divine feminine and empower it within ourselves. And we have to find the sacred masculine and empower it within ourselves. Because we have and we embody both. Women tend to, of course, because they signed up for those bodies and that consciousness, to embody the divine feminine more. And men tend to, because we signed up for those bodies and that process, to embody the divine masculine more. And I don't care about your gender preference or how you identify or whatever. That's the game that we've chosen to play. Yes? Yes. Take a breath. So we're playing with that idea. So it's important to understand, what does that look like and what does that feel like? Because most of what we see out there on TV or in the news doesn't teach us that. So I want to talk about 4 aspects of the divine masculine. And some of you may have heard of this before. I'm still going to play with it. The first one is called the king energy. King energy. Most of us are tremendously uncomfortable with being the king energy. About a week ago, we were visioning for my installation, which is happening. My installation as the minister. I'm still not comfortable with that word, installation. I see bolts and screwdriver. I mean, you install a dishwasher, and you install a toilet, and you install a bookshelf, and something like that. It's like, I'm expecting to be somewhere up on the wall there with, either that or also one of those, Han Solo carbonite blocks. Yeah. So I'm still a little uncomfortable with that term, the installation of the minister, but whatever. So and so we were visioning for what does the installation ceremony look like, and the first thing that came to me in my vision was this whole, king ascending, sort of thing like that. And I'm sitting there going, don't hear it. And I know how visioning works. And visioning works with it will give you ideas and visions and words and feelings that sometimes are outside of the norm of what it is that, oh yes, it is warm in here. It's not just me, okay. And that are outside of the norm of what we want to see. And so I finally had to say yes to that vision. And when I said yes to that vision, what came next was, this is the whole community ascending also. Because see, as your senior minister, I represent your consciousness. You guys all called me in. Yes, and you wouldn't have called me in unless this is the consciousness you wanted. And I'll say that because you guys have paid me a lot of compliments and said, we really love what you're doing. So guess what? You really love what you're doing. Yes. So congratulations. Eventually the honeymoon period will sort of taper out and you'll kind of question what you were doing, but and then we'll grow together. And then we'll really grow together. But you've called in a higher vision, and you're loving it, and we're growing with it. And that is the vision of the king energy, because the king truly is elected from and a representative of and an expression of the people. And each of us has this king energy. Now, the ideal king listens to his or her, if she's a queen, own inner king energy, is in alignment with that and listens to that. Now, all 4 of these aspects I'm going to talk about the divine masculine have their shadow sides. So the king's shadow side is either the tyrant, the one who's no longer listening to the inner, what's the highest and the best good here going on, and becomes the tyrant, becomes greedy, becomes authoritarian, becomes controlling, becomes my way or the highway. Does that sound like some of your dads? Yeah. Yeah. Or your moms when they were in their, that energy, becomes the tyrant. The other shadow side of the king, because a lot of us are so uncomfortable with the king that this is quite prevalent, is the abdicated king, the one who won't take the throne. And when we won't take the throne, we don't step into our power. Because the king is that, when the king is healthy, when the king is on the throne, the kingdom, which is our lives, thrives. When the king within me is on the throne and healthy and listening, my life thrives, because the king is that which makes the wise decisions. When we abdicate from that, there's no king, there's nobody making decisions, and we're being blown by the wind whichever way hither and thon. One of my favorite images from that, how many of you saw the movie Lord of the Rings trilogy, or have read the books? Some of you have, some of you haven't. There's a wonderful thing in there where there's one of the main characters is named Aragorn, who is by right the king of Gondor, but has not wanted to be, because it was his lineage that got them and the whole world into trouble in the first place. And so he says, I'm part of that lineage, I don't want to do it, I'm just going to be a ranger working out here in the forest, and I will not take the throne, I will not go back there. And there finally comes a point in time where he has to take the throne back. He's calling for an army that they need, and only he, in his power, can call for that army. There's times in our lives that only the king can call forth what we need to do to deal with our lives. Some of us face problems that look impossible, unsolvable. And we will not solve them until we stand in our power, stand in our king or queen energy, and declare this is what's going to happen, and this is the way we are going. And so it's important that we accept the throne. It's important that we step into this power. And it's important that we recognize that the power is not a power over somebody else. It's not a control, it's not a tyrant. And if you're in that abdicated energy, usually you have gained wisdom in that process of being abdicated. See, Aragorn had gained in his journeys great wisdom and great heart. He was not going to make the same mistakes that his ancestors had made. He knew how to be the king energy once he arrived there. He had both strength and compassion. So when we arrive at that king energy, we arrive there with strength and compassion. And that is what we have to embody in that king energy. The second aspect of the divine masculine is an energy that supports the masculine called the warrior energy. Now, the warrior energy also, among many of us, has a bad rap. But the warrior energy is that which does the wish of the king. It carries out the wishes of the king. It is the doer. I had this wonderful vision of how I would like to see the sanctuary, but I needed some warriors, some furniture warriors, to do it. You have ideas that you want to have, and if you're like some people, you have all these wonderful ideas, and then you put them up on the bookshelf of wonderful ideas, and they don't get carried out. And some of us have entire libraries filled with bookshelves of wonderful ideas that the king has heard, but there's no warrior energy to carry it out. You know some people like that, right? I know nobody here is like that, but you've met people. They're out there. The warrior energy is that which carries out the wishes of the king, which makes it happen. And there's times in our life where we have to have that warrior energy to make it happen. The shadow side of the warrior, of course, is that the warrior is constantly at war, constantly angry, constantly dealing with life as one big battle. And the other shadow side is the warrior quits. There's a wonderful, in the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna, the main hero of the story, the main focus of the story, gets to a point early on where he sits there and he's caught between having to go kill his friends, teachers, and relatives, or to save his friends, kin, and relatives, teachers and relatives. And he's caught between the rock and the hard place, and he finally sits down in his chariot and says, I'm not going to fight. And Krishna, who's his charioteer, who's of course God in form, if you know the story, he looks at him and says, you're a warrior. This is what you were born to be. This is the energy that you have to engage with here. You have to do this, whether it's comfortable or uncomfortable. See, the warrior energy within us is that which is willing to go where it's uncomfortable. The warrior energy within us is that which is willing to take on the challenges of life. Yesterday, Reverend Barbara and I went down to the Santa Rosa Church to share in the graduation of 9 ministerial students there. They call themselves the Numinous Nine, which I thought was a fabulous title. The Numinous Nine. Numinous is when you have a mystical experience, and so they were the mystical nine, or the Numinous Nine. And I love watching freshly graduated ministerial students because they've just come out of the crucible of the war, of the battle of ministerial school. And trust me, it's a battle. To get through it, it takes a lot. It takes a wrestling with things. You want to know who the warriors in this community are? They're the people who take classes. They're the people who show up and do things. See, some people just show up on Sundays and say, isn't that a nice inspirational message? And they go back about their week. And some people say, no, I want to do more. I want to wrestle with this. I want to play with this. I want to get jiggy with it, to quote Will Smith. I want to get involved. I want to get my hands dirty. I want to wrestle this down until the angel blesses me, like Jacob in the Bible. And those are the warriors. That's the warrior energy. And if you want to make a life that is more powerful and better than what your life already is, that's the energy you need. You need to wrestle down your own old belief systems that don't work, the ideas that will free and liberate you until they become yours. And so I watched these students that had come out of the crucible. I think it was last week I used a quote by Viktor Frankl that if you want to be a light, you have to get used to the sensation of burning. Take a breath. If you want to be a light, and most of us say, I want to be a beacon of light in the world, you have to get used to the sensation of burning, that which is purifying and burning away all that is not the light. Take another breath. And so not all of us, when we get confronted with that, say, let's go back where it's comfortable. Okay? This is me, what I talked about a couple weeks ago when the waiter offered me the dessert menu, and I said, I want to lose weight, and I looked right at that and said, yes, I'll take that dessert menu and order some dessert, thank you. That was the non-warrior energy. That was the shadow warrior energy. That was the abdicated warrior energy. By the way, the last time I was there, I did not take the dessert menu. I did not order dessert. The warrior is that which does. We need to love that warrior energy, learn how to work with it, learn how to keep it in balance. The next energy that we're going to look at is called the magician or shaman energy. The magician is the wise person within us. It is that which understands the inner ways and the flows of energy, and it is the wisdom keeper within us. It's in mythology, the magician is the magician is always the close advisor of the king. It's the one who keeps, when the king is ready to go off on a tirade and move into tyrant energy, it's the one who brings the cool rationality and says, let's look at the larger picture of what's going to happen if you do that. And so it's up to us to nourish our own inner magician, our own inner wisdom keeper. And we do that by listening to Spirit within. We do that by study of wisdom without the wisdom of others. That's why we take classes, that's why we read books, that's why we do things to engage our wisdom self. And so we deepen with our wisdom. The shadow sides of the magician are that the magician can move into being manipulative with that wisdom because they know all the secrets. They understand how to work with it. If you ever read the old the Don Juan Carlos Castaneda series, there's all these wizards and magicians that he's talking about that are shooting bad energy back and forth at each other and all that stuff. And the out of alignment shaman, that's what they do. They start to misuse the energy to hurt other people. Another aspect is that they move into being what I would call the scientist in terms of cold hard facts, forgetting the inner wisdom. So you know much about the world of out here of the senses, but they've forgotten the inner wisdom that's within. And so I sit there looking in the brain for what's the little, somewhere in there is consciousness. We're going to find the point that has the chemical reaction that feels like consciousness, forgetting that it's consciousness itself that is driving them to look at the brain. So the scientist forgets, the out-of-sorts scientist forgets the warmth and the wisdom of the inner wisdom and only relies on the sensory input. And so we have to do both. We have to incorporate both the outer wisdom, the what we do perceive and see it well and see it wisely, and the inner wisdom. The other aspect, the other shadow aspect of the magician is what I call the spiritual dilettante. The one who just wants it all right now. The happy, happy, joy, joy without any work involved. I'm just going to be so spiritual. We've met people like that? I've talked about the idea of spiritual bypass. I'm not going to do the deep work that's involved. I'm going to just bypass that process and just pretend that I'm happy. Oh, you hurt me, I'm just going to forgive you. Meanwhile, we're going, you, yeah. Okay? That's what's happening really with inside. And so that person feels inauthentic. We don't know how to act with that person. We don't know how to trust that person. So we want to move back into that which is our honest, pure, deep inner wisdom. And the fourth and final aspect of the divine masculine I want to talk about today is the lover. The lover is that one which perceives the world, connects with the world, and it interacts and connects with all the others. It basically brings together, it's the glue and the process that binds all the others together and makes the whole thing work. Because the king without love, the warrior without love, and the magician without love goes off on places that you just don't want to go. Okay? And so we need that lover to interconnect. The lover is that which interconnects with our divine feminine aspect. The lover is that which is the creative energy, the artist. The lover is that which is so in love with the universe that as one book I said, is the mystic and views the world as one giant orgasm of joy, as one author put it. That which is just in love. How many of you have ever just felt a moment where you're just in love with the universe, all that's around you? Yes. That's your lover coming out. That's the joy coming out. That's that which perceives the divine and just goes head over heels gaga. That's you when you've just fallen freshly in love with somebody. Did any of you remember when you freshly fell in love with somebody? Maybe it was a long time ago. Maybe it was just yesterday. That energy is with you today, by the way. It still is here today. Hopefully it still sparks your relationship. I would invite you, by the way, if you're in a relationship, to go look at that person and fall in love with them all over again. Just exactly as they are now. Not when they get to be, not when they fix, not when they, right now. Because when we fell in love with the person, warts and all, right? Yes? Yes. Boy, that didn't feel like much of a yes. How many of you have been in love before? Okay, and you fell in love with that person just as they were? Yes. All right, thank you. That feels better. The shadow side of the lover is the lover can go off just wild and crazy and fall in love with everything and have no discernment. They don't know how to keep themselves in balance. The lover becomes impotent because they don't tap into the strength of who they truly are. They're just running around in emotional tizzy. The other shadow side of the lover is addiction. When we get our love thwarted long enough, we move into addiction. We find something to fall in love with. If it's not going to be life and the divine and other people, then we fall in love with alcohol. We fall in love with drugs. We fall in love with Facebook. We fall in love with computers. We fall in love with shopping. We fall in love with all sorts of different things that are not healthy. And we turn to them for our love and our feelings of warmth. So that's the shadow side of the lover. So this week, as you go forward, what I'd like to invite you to do is to engage all four aspects of your divine masculine. So the king energy. Start seeing your impact, the impact that you have on other people's well-being, and tune into the feeling that the people around you are citizens of your very own kingdom and they are in your care. What would that be like? What would it be like if you were to step into the king energy and to perceive everyone else as someone that you are here to care about, to be wise in your decisions with, to be powerful in your decisions with? What would it be like if you were to look at that which you know wants to come through you, your dreams, your highest good, and say, yes, I choose to make that happen? This is the old Jean-Luc Picard, make it so, number one. Okay? Number one's the warrior, by the way. He makes it so. But it takes the Jean-Luc Picard energy, it takes the king energy, it takes that God of Genesis 1 who says, let there be, and there is. That's you. Would you be willing this week to step into that energy more powerfully than you ever have before? Yes. Thank you. And so you just say, yes, it's going to happen. Love you. Secondly, your warrior energy. Do something you've been postponing. Oh. Do something that you've been postponing, something that you know needs to get done. And you've been putting it off and mañanaing it and someday and do it. I am pushing. That's my role as a spiritual leader, is to push a little bit. I'm doing it too, by the way. I'll be walking with you. I already have been walking with you this week. Do something that you know you have to do, that you know is yours to do, that you know is going to make your life better. Do it. This is the Nike conversation. Do it. Just do it. If you ever read Emma Curtis Hopkins, who was one of Ernest Holmes' teachers, Reverend Kathy Ann Lewis calls her the Nike lady, the just do it lady. If you've been putting off your spiritual practice, I don't really have time to meditate. I'll meditate when I feel like. Just do it. Number 3, the magician energy. Engage in study and learning. Get to know some aspect of the universe better. Expand your mind. Expand your wisdom and your knowing. And finally, the loving energy, the lover energy. Engage in beauty. Engage in beauty. Find the beauty of life. Find somewhere that you find beauty. It can be your own backyard. It could be the person sitting next to you. You don't have to go traveling to Bali or Peru to find something beautiful. And you guys know that. Beauty is right here. Become more of the world around you and engage with other people more deeply from your lover aspect. Look at somebody that you've held in judgment and be willing to love them. So that's your charge this week. That's my push this week. Who was it who said I was pushing? Over there. So that's my push this week. I guarantee you that if you engage that energy, if you engage your divine masculine energy, those 4 aspects of that your life will start to expand and improve. Your kingdom will prosper and you will thrive. So let's pray. We turn within to that inner king, queen, goddess, God energy. And because we're celebrating Father's Day today, we are going to turn to that Father within. Not the father that's the abusive, not the father that's the tyrant, Jesus actually never was not referring to the Father of the Old Testament when he referred to the Father. He was referring to Abba, Daddy, that which is so close, so intimate, so loving, right here with us, closer than our neck vein, as it said. And so we engage with that Father energy, the ideal Father energy, the pure love, the pure strength, that which is there for us. That which says to the universe, let there be, and it is, and it calls it all good. We open to that energy that is within us and all around us, and we sink into that energy. We sink into the lap, into the arms of that absolute loving Father. And we allow ourselves to just snuggle in that and get all immersed in that. And then we recognize that we are one of it. We are an expression of that Father energy. All of us are an expression of that Father energy. And so we are the love. We are the strength. We are the wisdom. We are the action, the activity of that Spirit. We are that right here and right now. And so I speak my word that each of us here today, recognizes, experiences, and embodies that quality of the divine. We bring it into our body, into our lives. We are the place where that divine masculine energy guides us into creating a life of great joy, great prosperity, great love, great wisdom. We make the decisions. We carry out the actions. We engage in the expansion of our knowledge, and we love. We fall in love with this universe. We do all of this. We do it this week, we do it next week, we do it the week after, and we continue to expand and express this in our lives forevermore. We open to that which wants to move through us, and we say yes. We listen to the king energy within, the guidance energy within, and say yes to that. and our kingdoms thrive. And so for all of this, I'm grateful. For each person who says yes and for the thriving that comes out of this, I am so grateful. I call it all absolutely good, beautifully perfect, divine, whole, complete, right here, right now. And it is done, and so it is. It is. Thank you. You know, I was listening to the announcements about Carla's class that's coming up and right career, and I know when you're in the right career, you know it. You feel whole. You know, you still have your challenges, but you feel whole. And I know I'm in my right career, being a minister. But if I had another choice, and this has been throughout my life, I would have been a rock and roll guitarist. Me and Eric Clapton would have been up there jamming on stage somewhere during our careers, our long careers together. So thank you for your beautiful guitar work. I recognize good guitar work when I hear it. So thank you. Yesterday, Reverend Barbara and I went over to Santa Rosa for the graduation of the ministerial students from the Santa Rosa class, and we were coming back, and we've been having spiritual discussions all day, and we've been listening to spiritual songs all day, but it was that last hour, hour and a half of the drive, and I was beginning to fall asleep. I'm like, what, huh? Oh, I'm out of alignment here. And one must be in alignment. Thank you, Sue. And we were coming back from that drive, and it just called for a moment when we needed to play The Who. And I just happened to have Who's Next with me and slid it right into that CD player, listened to Roger Daltrey and Peter Townsend and Keith Moon going at it. And it was a spiritual experience. Reverend Sue always keeps me, the very first time I showed up here, my very, very, very first Sunday, which is like back in January, it was my pre-candidating talk. I walked in the front doors there for the first time, and Sue catches me, and she goes, "Wait, stop!" And she straightens my tie, and she redresses me completely, you know. So here we are doing it again. So thank you. She's my wardrobe consultant. Happy Father's Day. How many of you are fathers? Stand up if you would. We have a treat for you. Great. Huh? I guess I don't count. No. Keep yours. See what they don't. I'm going to eat all the ones that are left over afterwards. Thank you. What's that?
What about women who have been fathers?
Well, just a minute, Barbara. Did you want to do this? Your talk is 2 weeks from now. You have to hold on. So, thank you. How many of you have had fathers? Would you please stand up? Uh-huh. Honor your fathers. Thank you. So if you remember, I did a Mother's Day talk where I talked about moms, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Remember that? Was that this service or was that the first service? First service, okay. Well, first service on Mother's Day, I talked about moms, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And so we've also had fathers, good, bad, and ugly, right? And so if you've had one of those experiences with your father that was not the good father, I invite you to find a place within you that can let go of that and that can see as the song we said, we see the God within. Now, I don't know about you, but sometimes I'm not working on the God energy that I am. Sometimes I'm not living to my highest. And yet I want somebody who will still see the God within. Because that God is still there, isn't it? Thank you. This is a participatory universe. Each of us, each of you has had times when you're not operating from the highest and best God that you are, and yet you still want somebody who will see the God within you, yes? Yes. And so I invite you to find that place regarding your fathers and regarding your mothers, where you can see the God within them, even if they were so far off of it that they had no even clue that they even had a God within, or that you even had a God within. But the truth is, guess what? They and you still had God within. And so I invite you to start to love at that level, to start to forgive at that level, because where we hold the held on energy, the stuck energy about our fathers or about our mothers, is where we hold it within us. And you're not here to free your fathers and your mothers. You actually are here to free your fathers and mothers too. But most of all, you're here to free yourselves and free the place where it's stuck. And so I invite you, take a breath. Because for some of you, this is challenging, I know. And be willing to forgive your father for not being perfect. Be willing to forgive your mother for not being perfect. Be willing to forgive yourself for not being perfect. And see the God within and hold that in love. All of it in love. Just breathe that in for a moment. Open your hearts. And hold that love. My father was a difficult man to get along with. Mostly because my mother was a rageaholic. And my father responded to that by basically hiding. Keeping his head down out of her way. And so we didn't have a great relationship. And he was 55 when I was born anyway, so he was kind of quite a bit older. I had to teach him how to throw a football so that I could have somebody to play football with, instead of vice versa, you know. And that was my father. He died when I was 16 years old. And my mother throughout my whole life had said what a horrible, bad man he was. And I had that picture. I remember the day that he died, she said, pray for, right before we went to bed, she said, well, pray for your father. And I said, why should we pray for him? I was a good Catholic kid still then. Why should we pray for him? He's going to hell. That was my attitude about my father. He was going to hell. By the time I was 40 years old, I'd been through enough group therapy that I knew what bad fathers were like. I listened to some people that had some stories of really bad fathers. And he wasn't one of those. He didn't drink, he didn't beat anybody, he didn't cheat, he had a good job, provided us with a good home the whole time. His whole badness was he didn't, whatever my mom thought it was her stuff. And so I decided about 40 years old that I was going to go re-experience my father and have a deep healing bonding experience with him at his graveside. So I took my daughter, the one that some of you met when I was here for candidating, and she came. And about that time, she was about 7 years old. And we went down to Portland, Oregon, and where he's buried. And it was the first time I'd been back to his gravesite since the day he was laid in it. And so I was sitting there on this hillside in Portland the day after Thanksgiving. It was a beautiful, sunny, slightly cool day. It had rained the day before, so the lawn was all sort of still a little bit moist. There was an urn in a headstone, a couple headstones over that's filled with water. And so I'm sitting here having a spiritual experience with my father. My daughter, unfortunately, is running around playing and having a great time in this wonderful, big, green, grassy area, just doing all sorts of stuff. And I'm trying to have a spiritual experience with my father. My father. And she's distracting me. But I didn't want to get in her case because I didn't want to be that kind of a father, so I'm trying to let her do her thing, and yet I'm still kind of being annoyed with her internally because I'm trying to have a spiritual experience with my father. And this went on for a little while. And eventually I happened to notice, I looked out of the corner of my eye, and she has this little kind of long, thin stick, and she was flicking it in and out of the water at the urn next to us. Now, what I didn't mention was my father loved to fish. Oh God, here we go again. I love tears. They come at the most wonderful and inappropriate times. And so I looked over and I asked her, I said, what are you doing? And she goes, I'm fishing. And I thought, my dad would have loved to have known that his granddaughter was fishing beside his grave. It would have warmed his heart. And that was my spiritual experience with my father. It's like, okay, great, that's a box of bones right there. Where he lives is in here within me, and that's the experience. And so it was like she gave me the spiritual experience that I wanted with my father. So I invite each of you to notice, to think of something with your father that connects you with that heart energy about him, and to be in that place. We're going to talk today, to change gears very slightly, about the divine masculine. Last month we talked about the divine feminine energy. Today we're going to talk about the sacred masculine. And what I want to say to preface this is both, if you've been paying attention to our culture, both the divine feminine and the sacred masculine are not tremendously honored in our culture. Have you noticed? They're both kind of squashed. Yes? Yeah. Not necessarily in this church. I'm not talking about in this church. I'm talking about out there, in the media, in the stuff, in all that stuff. Men are made to look like boobs, idiots. We get to laugh at them. Women are, what women are made to look like. Yes? Objectified, you got to look a certain way. You got to be about this wide, and excepting in certain places where you're supposed to be a little different, and all that stuff. So we don't really go for what's the divine masculine, what's the divine feminine energy. And we won't be able to heal that within us until we accept both of those energies within us, because both live within us. Each of us has a divine feminine, each of us has a sacred masculine within us. And as women suit up and tend to take on the characteristics of the divine feminine more so, and men suit up and tend to take on the characteristics of the divine masculine more so we can play out this dynamic here on this planet and in these bodies and in this experience that we have called life on earth. But the truth is we're all one and we all have this within us. So we're going to look today and experience 4 aspects of the divine masculine, knowing that it resonates and resides within each and every one of us. Okay? The first one, okay, yes, thank you. The first one is the king energy. And the king energy is one of those that most of us are afraid of stepping into our king energy. The king is the ruler. The king is that which makes choice. The king is that which stands in the power and says, this is the way we're going. This is how it's going to be. I have to laugh because I was talking first service, we were visioning for my installation, which is coming up. I'm joking. I hate the word installation because I keep expecting bolts and nuts and screwdrivers. You install a dishwasher, and you would install an appliance in your home, and I keep expecting to be bolted to the wall during the ceremony or something like that, or a carbonite casing like Han Solo, in the Star Wars trilogy, and something that I'm installed into the service. But it's really a marriage. It's really a saying that you and I we've courted, we've dated, we've got engaged, and now we really are going to do this dance together. And that you really do say, yes, I accept you as my spiritual leader, and I say that I accept you as my congregation and accept that role as spiritual leader, and we play this dance together. And it's something that we all do together. And by the way, that spiritual leader lives where? Within each of us. Within each of us. So I only represent what is already living within you. And so we were visioning for this, and the first vision that came to me involved like a crown and a cape and a throne up here and all this at one point it was like, being lifted or dropped from wires from the ceiling down into, and I was like sitting there going, like, get out of my mind. I'm trying to have a spiritual experience here. It's the same spiritual experience I was trying to have with my father. I'm trying to have with this installation. But I know visioning well enough to know that whatever image comes in, you just got to work with it and play with it, because Spirit gives these wonderful images that sometimes open up into something else if you'll just accept it. And so I opened up to that energy. I finally said, okay, fine, I will accept that. I will accept being that king energy. And what immediately came is that as I accept that king energy, it raises all of us into our king energy and queen energy. And so this community lifts higher and higher itself. This community is raised up on its throne and crowned with the crown that belongs on each of your heads. Take a breath. And many of us sit there and go, oh no, I'm not a king, I'm not a queen, I don't want to be that. And so we're going to look at the shadow side of each of these energies. And there's 2 shadow sides of the king energy. And one is the one that most of us don't want to be the king because we've run into the shadow of the king. And the shadow side of the king is the tyrant. The shadow side of the king is the one that out of greed, out of need, out of ego magnification says, I'm going to run this place the way that I want to. My way or the highway. You've run into that, right? Hopefully none of you have said it, but maybe back in your unenlightened days when you were younger, you might have said those words might come out of your mouth. My way or the highway, as long as you love it under my roof and then live, you will play by my rules and that sort of stuff. Take a breath. Those of you who need to. But it's the one that says, me, I rule my way. We've gotten as a nation into wars because of that. We've had all sorts of stuff. When we talk about the patriarchal system that has run this planet for so long, that's what we're talking about. It's not the divine masculine, not the sacred king energy, but the tyrant king energy that has run this place for so long. Take a breath. And the place to undo that is not by overthrowing people, but finding the place within us, each, where we start to reclaim the sacred king energy within ourselves. Because the other shadow then, in reaction to that shadow, most of us do the other shadow of the king energy, and that is the abdicated king, the one who will not take the throne, the one who stays in the powerlessness. And yet the kingdom is your life, okay? Your life needs you to be the king or queen. Your life needs you to stand in that power, because the king is that which makes the wise decisions and guides where we're going to go. The king is that which, as Ernest Holmes says, stands at the door of our consciousness saying yes or no to that which we want or don't want in our lives. That's the king energy that we are. And so when we're abdicated from the king energy, we are powerless. Our lives just kind of get knocked here and there, and then we get angry, we go into victim, we go into all that stuff. But most of it is, or actually all of it is, because we don't stand in our own king energy. Breathe. And so I'm going to invite you that if you have abdicated the throne, that today you begin to be willing to step into the throne, onto your king energy. There's a wonderful scene. How many of you have seen the Lord of the Rings trilogy movies or read the books? Some of you. Okay. Well, I'll talk about it. It looks like about a good half of you haven't, but we'll talk about it anyways. There's a character in there, one of the main characters called Aragorn, who is comes out of the lineage that used to rule Gondor, the kingdom of Gondor. And he has refused to take on, he's the rightful king, but he won't take the throne, because his lineage was the one that got them into trouble in the first place. And he says, I don't want that blood, that flows within me to get the rest of the kingdom in trouble. See, most of us have looked at that and said, well, I made some decisions, I made some bad decisions, so I'm just not going to make any decisions anymore. I'm going to give up my power, I'm going to let somebody else do it. And he has to take the throne to call in the army that he needs to resolve the problem that he has. See, you and I are facing problems oftentimes in our lives, and if not in your life, you might want to look around the world. We are facing problems that seem unsolvable. And to the abdicated king, they are unsolvable. We have to step into the energy of the king, and the king is that which is connected to the one. The king is that which is the wise king, the powerful king, and that is what can solve the problems in our lives and the problems in our world. That is that which causes the kingdom to thrive. And so we step into, I'm going to invite you this week, and as we talk a little bit later, to step into and become aware of that king energy, and where are you in relationship to that? And am I willing to be in my king energy? If it's uncomfortable, am I still willing, even if it's uncomfortable, to step through my discomfort and be in the king energy? The second energy we're going to talk about is the warrior energy. And again, the warrior energy sometimes, especially with men, has a bad rap in our culture, because the warriors have either done one of two things. They've either stayed at war the whole time, angry, battle, fight. You ever met people like that they're constantly in a battle with life? Have you met people like that? Yes. Okay. I know none of you are, but you probably met some people like that. And they're off sometimes fighting wars that they don't even know what they're for, or they're fighting wars that some tyrant king has sent them off on that are completely unjustified. And we dishonor the warrior when it's really the tyrant king that's made the decision. But the warrior energy, in its sacred aspect, is the energy that does. It is the doing energy with us. It is that which makes the will of the king manifest. And when the king is on the throne, And in their highest wisdom, it is that which brings about what we want in our lives. How many of you have, like I do, a bookshelf of ideas where you say, wow, that's a wonderful idea. I should do that. I should learn to play guitar. Put that on the bookshelf. Someday I'll do that. I should learn how to do this. Put that on the bookshelf, and someday I'll do that. The warrior is that which takes it off of the bookshelf and says, I'm going to do that. I am doing that. I joked a couple weeks ago that I was in a restaurant here, and I'm trying to lose a little bit of weight, and the waiter, who was this really buff guy, offered me the dessert menu. And I heard this little voice, that was the King energy voice, saying, if you want to look like that guy, say no to the menu. And I said yes to the menu. Okay? That's the abdicated warrior. The king was speaking loudly, but the warrior said, I'm checking out of here. And I had a wonderful dessert. But it didn't get me to where I really wanted to go. I want you to know that I've been back to that restaurant twice, and I've said no to the dessert menu twice since then. The warrior energy in its sacred aspect is that which brings us to where we want to go. When we abdicate the warrior, when we won't be in the warrior energy, we are powerless, impotent, nothing happens in our lives. We have a bunch of great ideas, and we don't bring them to manifestation. Some of you know what I'm talking about. Some of you know people that are like that. The third aspect I want to talk about is what's called the magician, or the shaman. And the magician or shaman energy, the wizard energy within us, is that which understands the deep energy within us, the deep wisdom that lives within the universe. It's not just stuck in looking at what's happening right out here in front of it. It understands the bigger picture. In mythology, the king is always advised by a wizard, or often advised by the wizard. And that's because the wizard can see the bigger picture, where the king wants to take off and go, hey, that guy just took my queen, I'm going to go and ransack his kingdom. The wizard comes back and says, think of the bigger picture, calm down. So the wizard, the magician within us, is that which taps into our higher, wiser, and deeper energy. It's that which enhances the king's energy, which brings more wisdom to that. The shadow of the wizard is that can be a couple of things. One is the wizard can be manipulative. It has all this knowledge. If you've ever read the Carlos Castaneda's Don Juan series of books, or any of or lots of others, he talks about the shamans, that would, throwing negative energy and stuff back and forth at each other. Okay, that's the manipulative shaman energy, the manipulative magician energy. I'm not here for the highest good. I'm here for my ego. I'm here to manipulate things, to make things happen. I know little secrets. Any of you who start to engage in gossip behind the back of somebody else, you're engaged in the shadow side of the wizard or the shaman. I know nobody here does that, but you've probably met people out there who do that. It doesn't work. It's the manipulative side. I'm going to try and manipulate things around. The other shadow side of the magician is what I call the scientist, that which gets into just the facts, ma'am. No heart, loses track of the connection with the inner wisdom. It's what I call the materialist scientist today, who everything is matter. There is no consciousness. Consciousness is just we'll find it in the brain somewhere. There's a little center somewhere in the brain. We haven't found it yet, but we will someday find that little place that gets us to experience consciousness. It's there. It's a piece of matter. Okay, and forget totally the fact that it's consciousness that is guiding them and driving them to explore the brain. So it's the scientist who loses track, who forgets the inner wisdom. And then there's finally the abdicated wizard, which is where I don't want to do the work of the wizard. It's what I call the innocent, which I want to have the wizard's power. See, I want to be a rock and roll star. I want to be able to play guitar just as well as Bradley does. But I don't want to put into practice. How well do you think I'm going to do? Not too good. There's a lot of us who want to be spiritual, but we don't want to put in the good hard work. See, the warrior energy is that which drives us to take a class. That which says, let me go wrestle with these principles. The magician in its higher energy is that which studies the books, studies the principles. It says, let me know more, let me learn more, let me expand my consciousness. We've met people who, they just want to put on the right clothes. You got to look spiritual. You got to wear certain clothes to look spiritual, right? They're usually, especially if you're a woman, they're all flowy and long and nice. And you've got to have the right candles and the right incense and the right crystals and all that stuff and all the outer dressings of that. But you don't want to do, that kind of person doesn't want to do the hard inner work that it takes to really become a spiritual agent for good. I think it was last week that I used the quote from Viktor Frankl that if you want to be a light, you need to get used to the sensation of burning. We have to be willing to let go of that which no longer serves us. And then the final energy that I want to talk about is the lover. And the lover is that which is just absolutely, overwhelmingly, mind-bogglingly in love with the universe. It is absolutely in love. How many of you have ever been mind-bogglingly in love? Either with a person, with a piece of nature that you were looking at, with a beautiful work of art, with a piece of music. That wasn't very enthusiastic. How many of you have been mind-bogglingly in love? All right, thank you. A little more enthusiasm there. The lover is that which gives us enthusiasm. If you're not feeling real enthusiastic, it's your lover that's disengaged. Take a breath. The lover is that which connects us with the infinite. The lover in the divine masculine is that which connects with the divine feminine. The lover is that which bonds and brings together all the other aspects. The lover is that which is absolutely is absolutely in love with the infinite. The lover is the beating, pulsating heart of each of us that drives us to want to get up in the morning and just enjoy life. The lover is that which connects us to the infinite joy. When we abdicate the lover, we do one of two things. We get cynical. That's the abdicated lover. My heart's been broken too many times, I ain't ever going to love again. You ever met somebody like that? I've already been down this path. I know where it goes. I'm not going to bother because I don't need to go there. It already knows it's not going to go there. It's the cynical. I think there's a wonderful quote. I can't remember who said it, but cynicism is the last residence of the romantic. When the romantic gets burned out, he or she moves into cynicism. And so that's the abdicated. I'm not going to bother to even engage my heart anymore, my lover anymore. The other shadow side, when there's too much of the lover, is that it's scattered all over the place. It's loving everybody, not in the right way. Okay? That's that person we say that can't, keep the healthy boundaries that they need to regarding their interactions with other people. And so the lover is that when we're engaged, when we're in the sacred lover, which sees the God within each of us and loves the God within each of us. It's that which Bradley was singing about in that song. It's that which sees the God. And so when you see the God within another person, you love them in a healthy and respectful way. You're not trying to manipulate them. You're not trying to take advantage of them. You're not trying to go, ooh, I need more of that. Because another shadow side, by the way, of the lover is the addiction. More chocolate. If a little chocolate's good, more chocolate is better. Alcohol, drugs, all that stuff, the addiction side, is the lover out of control. And so we move into that sacred lover that respects themselves and the person or the being in front of them and loves them from that. And that is the sacred lover. So this week I'm going to invite you to engage these aspects of you in 4 different ways. If I can get the problems are printed over the weekend. My notes are kind of messed up. The king energy. I want to invite you to engage the king energy this week. I want you to start to notice the power that you have to create the life that you want. Take a breath. It's what we teach here, the power of the word, the power of our ability to declare a thing and it is so. It is the power that is talked about in the very, very, very first chapter of Genesis that says, God said, let there be, and there is. That's the power that you and I have. That first chapter, by the way, is a secret teaching, sacred teaching that comes out of the Egyptian schools for how to create and how to manifest. There's a code to it. And the simplification of it is, God says, let there be, and there is, and it calls it good. I invite you this week to start declaring what you want in your life, to stand in that king energy and start to declare it. Are you willing to do that? Yes. The warrior energy. I said this the first service and had a couple of reactions, so let's see what happens here. This first service, the warrior energy. Do something you've been postponing. Do something that you've been putting off that you know is yours to do. And yes, I'm pushing you, as somebody in the first service said. Do that which you know you've been meaning to do, pull it off the bookshelf, and get her done. This is the Nike energy. Just do it. Yes? Yes. Okay. You all know what it is, don't you? Yes. Just do it. What it does is allows you to move into your authenticity. What it allows you to do then is become, instead of just a theoretical spiritual person or a theoretical person, is to move into your authenticity, to move into your power. It does it. The third one, to engage your magician energy, is engage in study and learning, expand your consciousness. Do something this week to learn something more about the world and the universe in which you live. Whether it's to take a class, whether it's to get online and just engage in a topic that you know nothing about. Expand your knowledge. Expand your consciousness. Do visioning. Listen within. Catch that inner wisdom and inner consciousness. So engage that. And finally, to engage the lover energy, practice loving something. See the beauty in something this week. If you've got a partner, like a husband or a wife or a partner or even a parent or a kid, notice them. Pay attention to them and love them. Perhaps like you haven't loved them in years. Now, I'm not talking, I think you're just freshly engaged, aren't you, or about to get married, is that right? Yeah. So you're probably already doing this. So, see that grin? Stand up. Turn around. Come on, Holly. Turn around. Yeah. That. Be like that this week. Find someone or something that you can engage in. Thank you. Find something or someone that engages you to where you can feel that energy, that heart energy, and you can just grin and beam and go, oh yeah, I'm just so in love with that. More than chocolate, by the way. And that's a big thing for me. So engage your energy this week. Engage your divine masculine. Engage your power. Get in touch with that. Get connected with that. Expand. Step into your power. Willing to do that? Yes. All right. Let's pray. So I know that the infinite presence is all that there is. It is the pure power, the pure love, the pure wisdom. And the divine right action, the movement of this universe. That the infinite is this divine masculine and divine feminine in beautiful, harmonious dance together. That this is the truth of the infinite. And I know that each of us, because that presence is infinite, because that which is beyond all names is infinite, we are one of it. We can't be anywhere else or anything else but one of it. So we ourselves are the dance of the divine masculine and the divine feminine together. We are that. We are embodiments of that process. We are the yin-yang energy, blending, constantly moving, shifting, becoming more of one, more of the other, but we are that blending together, living in a harmonious way, and out of that harmony comes the output, comes the birth of the new child, the new energy, the new whatever wants to be birthed through us, the new idea, the new creation, the new manifestation that as we engage in that energy, as we open to that harmony, we open to that which is trying to be birthed through us in spirit. We don't have to fight to make it happen. We don't have to try and will it into place to make it happen. We don't have to know everything to make it happen. We simply open the heart and open the wisdom and open the door and say, I am willing to let this come through me. I am willing to move into that king energy that is guided by the infinite. I am willing to be that place where action, I don't have to make it happen, it happens through and as me. I let it happen. We move into that place that I'm willing to know and be connected with the infinite wisdom. I can know it all without ever knowing it all. And finally, we move into that place that allows the divine infinite love to move through us, to shatter walls, to overcome all obstacles, to blend and just incorporate all that there is into this sense of joy and of love. We say yes to this. We allow it to just infuse our entire lives. We allow ourselves to restore order to the kingdom that is our lives, the kingdoms that are our communities, the kingdoms that are our work, the kingdoms that are our homes, and the kingdoms that is this world. We allow that blending, that harmonizing of that masculine and feminine, each one standing in its true sacred power, to be that healing agent, that beautiful light on this planet. We allow ourselves to awaken to our spiritual magnificence of who we truly are, right here and right now. And so for this, I'm grateful. For each and every person here who is saying yes to this today, for each and every person who watches this or hears this, I'm so grateful for the yes that is happening within the soul, within the heart, within the being. And I'm grateful for the good that comes out of this, for the good that we don't even know is going to come out of us, for the good that ripples on just like our children's good, and what we do for our children ripples on and on and on throughout centuries beyond where we ever see. And I'm grateful for the spirit that is within, through, beyond, and as all of this. And so we let that spirit as us flow. We let this manifest in our lives, in our worlds, in the most beautiful, powerful, perfect ways. We simply say yes, yay, yippee, skippy, and amen. It is done, and so it is. Thank you.